I'm Shannon Thrasher, and this is 30 Second Tactics. Today I'm going to answer a couple questions I hear pretty frequently about instructors in general and about me specifically. First question I get is, how long have you been teaching? How long have you been instructing? How long have you been training cops? Well, cops specifically, not quite as long as I've been training in general. Honestly, I've had a passion for teaching and instructing my entire life. That goes all the way back to me showing friends of mine, how to safely operate guns and stuff, taking them shooting stuff way back when I was in high school. And that was many, many years ago. If you guys don't know, I'm an old guy now. But as far as formally teaching cops, I've done FTO work over the years. I've helped a lot of other instructors as I worked my way up to where I felt confident to, run my own classes. But I've been doing my current iteration with my company and everything. We've been at it about 7 years. So that's me. As far as the other question I get a lot is, what should I look for in an instructor? And, does it have to be, does the class he's teaching have to be his specialty? We use the term subject matter expert a lot in law enforcement training. And there's a saying you've probably heard that goes, those who can do and those who can't teach. Now, I've never really been a fan of that saying. In general, even with regular teachers, instructors, college professors, high school teachers, whatever, but even more so specifically to law enforcement, that saying doesn't really fly, because there's basically two types of instructors when it comes to law enforcement. Now, there's exceptions to everything, of course, but the vast majority of instructors out there will fall into one or two categories, and that's going to be either a retired cop who's now teaching either full-time or part-time, and like myself and many others, someone who's currently in law enforcement, but in their spare time outside of the regular job also teaches. Now, that doesn't mean every cop is a great instructor. That's definitely not true. Whatever the skill is, whether it's firearms or whatever, I know a lot of people that are very talented with firearms but just don't make good instructors. Either they don't want to be, or they just don't have the public speaking, or whatever it comes to it. But when you look at firearms or law enforcement instructors in general, do they need to be specifically trained or skilled in what they're teaching? Generally, I would say yes. Now, there are exceptions. There are certain classes, certain mandatory stuff you get at your department, or refresher stuff or what have you, where you can basically look at an outline and recite the stuff in front of the class and they've been taught. But stuff like, if you're going to, a SWAT school, for example, should the main instructor or most of the instructors be current or former SWAT officers? I would say yeah. Because there's only so much you can learn from the books. You got to have those reps. You got to have those real world experiences where you figure out not only why we're doing it, but what's the best way to do it, and and that kind of stuff. The other thing I would say look for an instructor. Well, let me back up a second. When it comes to, has he done this or she done this before they start teaching it? When it comes to firearms and tactics, especially firearms, self-defense, that kind of stuff, if you wipe away all the fluff and everything, basically what you're doing is training to be in a gunfight and to come out on top of that gunfight. So the question comes, should you only take firearms instructor, or will you get better firearms instruction from a cop who's been in a gunfight? I'm going to say no. There's exceptions. I know cops that have been in very crazy, hairy gunfights that are amazing instructors. I know cops that never shot their gun in anger or defense, or whatever you want to call it, in a 20 or 30 year career and are great instructors. I know guys that have been in shootouts, and I'm surprised they survived, because they're not tactically sound, they're not good shots, and they wouldn't make good instructors. So I don't think that necessarily needs to be. Now, if you find one that has all that in one package, great. But back to, what kind of instructor you're looking for. There's a phrase, and I'm going to mess it up, but it's basically data driven. What are we teaching? Whatever it is. Let's say we're teaching traffic stops, whether it's unknown risk, known risk, high risk, felony stop, whatever terminology you use. I'm a big fan of unknown risk versus known risk. If you know you're pulling some over with a warrant or a history with the cops, or you know he's got a gun, that's a known risk. Everything else is an unknown risk. Grandma that you're pulling over because she's got a busted taillight, you never know. You know, is there a good chance she's going to pull out a gun and start shooting? No. But is there a chance? Yes. And there might be 100 other things going on, up to including the fact that as you're walking up to talk to grandma, somebody's driving by the other direction and sees you and doesn't like the police and thinks you're picking on grandma. And I don't want to turn this into a traffic stop video, so I'll leave that at that. But for example, if your class is traffic stops, let's just say it's high-risk traffic stops. That's a good class you guys should all be in one version or another. Are we doing things in that class? Are the instructors doing things in that class because they're fun for the students, or because they look cool, or because they make you run and jump and swim and all the crazy stuff that, you know, get sweaty to class to feel like you did something? Or are they data driven? Are they doing things like, okay, if this, then this? Well, why? Why are we doing X because of Y? Well, because we studied the last 100 or 500 or 1,000 incidents similar to this, and the cops that did X, you know, turned out better than the cops that did Y. So we're going to train you to do X. So look for that kind of stuff when you look for instructors. And I know sometimes that's hard to find. A lot of the, for lack of a better term, a lot of the top tier instructors out there right now that I'm familiar with will keep a lot of what they teach very close to the vest. Now, if you'll notice, if you watch all my videos, I give some very basic ideas and some basic concepts. This is YouTube. The whole world can see this. There's somebody sitting in whatever, in Germany right now watching this video for all I know. And nothing against Germany, it's just a country that came to mind. But bad guys can use YouTube just as good as good guys. So I'm not going to give away any specific tactics or training on YouTube, but I know guys, like I said, I know instructors, they won't talk about what they teach outside their class. And part of that is because they've worked very hard to develop that curriculum. They're getting paid to teach it, and they don't want somebody ripping off, you know, their thing and selling it as their own. I get that. And the other thing is, like I said, you know, if you put it all out on paper or on the internet, then the bad guys can get it too. It's not just about, you know, other good guys using your stuff. So it is a little hard to get that information. I understand that. You can always, if you think instructor A is putting out good information, talk to some guys that went to his class. If that's not possible, if you know anyway, find his most convenient for you, least expensive class, even if it's not on a topic that you're really excited about, and go take that class. And you'll be able to find out based on that class. Well, if he teaches, you know, report writing, and, you know, the most boring class I could think of, and he teaches that well and professionally, and, you know, you get to know him over the day or two it takes, and then you can decide, well, then he's probably going to teach, you know, underwater basket weaving or high-risk felony stops or whatever well too. And don't be afraid to turn your back on a bad instructor. Now, I don't mean be rude, I don't mean be unprofessional, I don't mean, but if you go to class and you sit through the class or you walk through class, whatever kind of class it is, and you get, you know, you get done with the class, you get your certificate, and you walk away saying, you know what, I don't agree with his tactics, or I don't agree with, you know, the way he teaches, or he's clearly not up to the job, that's okay. That's a lesson learned. Don't get mad. You know, just walk away from him. Don't put good money after bad, I guess is what I'm saying. And if you go to a class and this instructor's super squared away, and again, give it a couple days after the class, because you're going to be hot and tired and excited during the class, and review it. Like I said, think about it. Was this data-driven training? You know, did they teach me something or refresh me on something if I already knew it, that's actually based on what could really happen? Now, we can what if it to death, because anything can happen. Like I said, grandma on that traffic stop could pull out a gun. But, you know, the things that statistically that happen the most often, the best ways for us to get out of those things. And I mentioned earlier, like, I know instructors that worked 30 years and never shot anybody. That don't mean anything negative. That could very easily mean something very positive. That means they used such good tactics over those 30 years that they never got themselves in a situation where they had to get in a shootout. Now, we all know sometimes you can't help it, but I mean, me personally, I can tell you there's been dozens of times over my career where if I had used worse tactics, I probably would have got in more shootouts, or, you know, whatever, insert, you know, fight, stabbing, foot pursuit, whatever. you know, when we're young, we love getting in fursuits. When we start getting older, we start working smarter. We start wedging guys indoors. We start cuffing guys earlier. We start doing things to avoid foot pursuits, right? Same thing. These cops that went 30 years without a gunfight did a lot of things to keep themselves out of a gunfight. And I know, don't flame me in the comments. I know sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes the guy wants to get in a shootout. Sometimes it's an ambush. Sometimes it is what it is. I'm not saying cops that never got in a gunfight, I'm not saying that's negative. I'm not saying cops that got in 3 or 4 gunfights in their career, I'm not saying that's negative. They're getting 3 and 4 in a year. Their bosses probably need to look at where they're sending them and what they're doing. It might be legit. I don't know. Kind of getting off on a tangent there. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much where I'm at. Like I'm saying, make sure, obviously all my videos are saying the same thing, which is go get training. Please, go train. That's why I'm here. That's why I do this channel. That's why I teach. That's why my classes are free. So that's one less excuse you have. So go get the training. Obviously, this video goes out around the world and the country and different states, and everybody can't come to my classes. And I don't offer a good enough variety to say, you know, even if you just came to me, I couldn't train you on everything because I don't offer everything. So I'm not trying to say come to my classes, which you're welcome to. But wherever you are, whoever's available, go to those classes. And like I said, look at them, you know, from a perspective of, are they teaching me something just because it's fun or cool or just to check a box? Or are they teaching me stuff that's data-driven information that's actually going to make me safer and going to make the bad guys safer, because we have to consider that too, make the citizens safer, make everybody safer, do a better job. So that's what I have for you this time, guys. As always, work, train, repeat. Stay safe.